All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Structural Formulas. This video is operating under the assumption that you have already watched my video on molecular Lewis structures. So if you have not, you might want to, because I'm going to be assuming for most of this that you have watched those already. So that said, that's your warning. Let's get started. Structural formulas are meant to show the same information, but to give you a little more flexibility in how you put them together than molecular Lewis structures. So to that end, we will be looking at both of them side by side, and I'll be scrolling back up to the previous section to do that. Okay, in a structural formula, we don't actually show all of the electrons. Sometimes you'll see the lone pairs. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Depends on who you're working with. I go back and forth, if I'm completely honest. So, something to keep in mind. But you do not show your bond pairs ever. Okay? Instead of using circles and circling our electrons, we're just going to draw a line between them, which you have probably seen me do on multiple occasions. This is what I'm drawing. I'm drawing a structural formula instead. So it's a little simpler. Let's just do a little more. So bonds are shown with lines, and we don't have that grid pattern requirement that gets a little annoying with the structural formulas, or with the molecular Lewis structures. If we don't line things up in a grid, the electrons kind of look messy. So with these, we don't have that problem, so it's a little easier to get through. Before I scroll back up, I want to make a couple corrections. First off, there's a 3 here. It's supposed to be a 2. And in case you're wondering on any of the others, these are the formulas for this section. These are the assignment that I'm going to be talking about at the end of this. So you'll want to come down and do these. So that said, I'm going to pause this. I'm going to prep the background a little bit, and we'll start doing some structural formulas. All right, these were the 6 practice dot diagrams that we did. And I want to use these to show you what the structural formulas look like. So the structural formulas, we replace the circle with just a line showing the bond. So for H2, this would be the structural formula. You can see how this can quickly make up for some of the issues that we see in others. Now, for this one, there's 2 ways to do it, depending on whether you're including the dots, the lone pairs, or not. You could either draw it, and I'm going to tilt it a little bit, like this, or with those lone pairs included, like this. Now, this is not required. I usually do this unless I'm trying to show a particular fact about it. The last thing I want to show is the oxygen. I want to show you how multi-bonds work and how you redo a couple of things. So I'm going to do the same thing here. The first one will be no extra lone pairs. The second one will include them. Because we're not restricted to that grid formula that we see here, we don't have to put our second bond all the way on the bottom. So when we draw oxygen, we just draw 2 lines connecting it instead of putting one all the way at the bottom or all the way at the top, which is way easier. Ditto for nitrogen, except we would just put 3 lines. Now, when we do this, though, we do have to move our electrons, or move our lone pairs if we're going to show them to reflect how it actually looks. So if we're drawing it with the electrons, the pairs get offset slightly because of how the bonds are together. Okay, now for this one, it would just work out to be the same as it was in the Lewis structure, with the lone pairs on the outside. So you guys do these two. Should be pretty straightforward. You just need to change the circles for lines. And then I want you to work on worksheet 4. Make the swap for them, doing the same structures that you did for the Lewis structures. And then I want you to do the extra assignment scrolling down from this point to work on those. Other than that, that's the main difference between structural formulas and molecular Lewis structures. They're very simple. So do these real quick. I will give you a second to pause, and then I'll put the answers up. But after that, it's just to finish worksheet 4. But that's it. So pause it for a second. All right, I'm assuming you did. Now, for this one, we just have C with 4 H's. And then this one, we have to connect our carbons first. And then our other bonds. Now, there is one thing that I almost forgot to mention that you have to keep in mind for structural formulas. And this is why I'm giving you extra practice other than the ones we've already turned in to dot diagrams. You have to know how many bonds something can make. That is on you. You have to remember it. Now, that is not terribly difficult. If we go back to our periodic table here, hydrogen is going to be 1. And then starting here, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's determined based on how many valence electrons it is. It is the same number as the most common ion, not the charge. You drop the charge. So it's not +1 or -1. It's just 1. But you'll have to know that. So everything in group 17 can make 1 bond. Everything in group 16 can make 2 bonds. 15 can form 3. And carbon can make 4. And then hydrogen obviously can make 1. So that is your assignment. Or that's structural formulas. Again, like I said, I'm assuming you've already watched the molecular Lewis structures. This does not take too long to pick up. So work on not work on this. This you should have down already. Scroll down through these and do the formulas that I showed you at the beginning of the video. Draw them out and upload them. Okay, and that is it for this video. Soon we will be starting in on reaction types and balancing, and that will be the end of this unit. So, almost ready for our next test. Yes. Have a wonderful night. I'll see y'all later.